Hey everyone, I've been listening to a little bit more Bob Dylan recently. I wanted to talk to you about it. It's day 28 of my Bob Dylan fever. The last time we talked, I was really into the 1975 and 1976 albums, Blood on the Tracks and Desire. Since then, we've somehow gotten to the point where I own the 14 CD box set of the live performances of these albums. I want to talk about how we got here. Over the last couple of weeks, I somehow went from knowing a handful of mainline Bob Dylan albums to finding myself going, maybe the bootleg series of Telltale Signs really is in contention for some of the best collection of Bob Dylan's music. And as soon as I was thinking that, I realized, oh, I've gone off the deep end. I've gone way too far. I'm way too far in, and I wanted to pause and figure out how I got here. So, since I brought you along for the beginning of this journey, I figured let's continue in part 2 of tricking myself into liking Bob Dylan. Firstly, I'm going to update you on my favorite albums since the last video. I would still say my favorite album is Blood on the Tracks, and I've learned since then that that seems to be a pretty wide consensus, or like a pretty indisputable pick. Like it's kind of like Abbey Road for the Beatles. Like no one's going to argue that Abbey Road is not the best Beatles album. Blonde on Blonde is second for me, and I think Desire is third. But we have 2 new mystery contenders that have entered the ring, and I want to introduce them to you. So without further ado, Nashville Skyline and Time Out of Mind are on that top 5 list. This is probably number 4, after Desire. And then this is number 5. I want to talk about the song Highlands from Time Out of Mind really quick, which if you're a Bob Dylan fan, you already know about it. But if you don't know this song, it is a 16-minute long song that spends like the first 5 or 6 minutes in this very artsy, wordy section. Very Bob Dylan. And then almost out of nowhere, it switches to a crazy long conversation between Bob Dylan and a waitress at like a breakfast restaurant. And what starts off as this song that's kind of just like infinite. It seems to just be going everywhere, comes screeching to a halt, and it stops and then just starts like doing a play-by-play of every word and movement of this conversation. It's so funny to listen to. I can't get enough of this song. When she asks his order and he's basically like, guess, and she's like, eggs, and he's like, yeah, you're right, I want eggs. And she's like, we're out of eggs. Sorry, you came at the wrong time. It's so stupid, but so funny. I can't believe this song exists. And I say stupid, I meant that endearing. I meant like, it's such a funny thing to do in the song. It's clearly very intentional that we're going from such a wide range of descriptors to such a very small and narrow situation. It's artfully done, and I think it does it so well that it makes me laugh every time. That's such a cool song. I think it's so funny. One other thing about this album that I think is crazy, Time Out of Mind came out in 1997, and it won a Grammy for Album of the Year that year. Let me show you 2 other albums that were in that category that were beaten out by Time Out of Mind. Flaming Pie from Paul McCartney, and OK Computer from Radiohead. Seeing these 3 albums in a lineup together, going head to head for Album of the Year, is the most surreal thing. In my head, these albums exist in like different universes. Like, I can't imagine a world where OK Computer and Flaming Pie came out the same year, and people were like, which is the better album? But it's so weird because it's like Radiohead at that time had like The Bends and Pablo Honey and whatever other CD singles they had released at that time. So you're not hearing OK Computer and thinking, oh yes, one of the most like innovative bands of the time has released their big keystone record that marks a change for music and where their sound will go next. You're thinking like, dang, Radiohead released a really good album, but like they're not like legends yet. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just crazy to see OK Computer, Flaming Pie, and Time Out of Mind all released in the same year. I love all of these albums so much. They're all some of my favorites from these artists, but seeing them up against each other is really funny. I want to touch on one of my other favorites in the top 5 list now, and that is Nashville Skyline. I love this album so much. It's one of those albums, a lot of people have described it as kind of like a vibe album, and it very much is. Like, I'm putting this on to feel warm, happy, fuzzy feelings for 26 minutes. Obviously, the big song off this album is Lay Lady Lay, but I really like Peggy Day and Country Pie and To Be Alone With You. I like the reworking of Girl from the North Country and how they're like kind of almost singing a duet at the end. That's funny. Another album I've really come to enjoy since we've last spoken on the subject, and I did make a joking reference to getting the bootleg version of this recently, but it's Self-Portrait. Side note, when I released my album and called it Self-Portrait, I remember searching up right before I put it out what other albums were called Self-Portrait. And I didn't know anything about Bob Dylan at the time. So I looked up Self-Portrait and saw that Bob Dylan had an album called Self-Portrait. And I was like, shoot, I should have called it something else. Like, this is bad news. And then I looked up reviews about it and I was like, wait, no one likes this album. I'm fine. I'm totally in the clear. But I like this album. I like this album a lot. I think it's really funny that there could possibly be an album from an artist where fans debate whether or not it is intentionally bad. That's really funny. Like, one day I want to put out an album that makes people that like my music go like, no, you guys don't understand. This was a calculated choice to make music that he knew people wouldn't like because he wanted to stick it to the people that wanted him to do something. And that's why I bought this double album. That's why I spent $35 on this, because it's bad on purpose, and so therefore it's good. I think that's really funny. I like the album, so I'm only just joking. I truly do enjoy this album. It's all covers, basically. There's a couple original things on it, but I think it sounds really good. I really enjoy Bob Dylan's 1970 voice. I have a lot of fun listening to this album whenever I put it on. All the Tired Horses get stuck in my head immediately when I put it on. Sometimes I'll skip it just so that it won't be stuck in my head all day. Okay, now that we've talked about a handful of those albums, I want to talk about why I think I've been really into Bob Dylan over the last couple of weeks. I've been trying to kind of figure out what has been making me so interested in all of the live performances, because normally I'm like a fan of live performances, but I'm not really gonna go listen to them over the studio version of a song. There's a couple exceptions, obviously. Wings Over America has some fantastic live performances that I prefer to some of the studio recordings, but for the most part, I'm gonna listen to the album version of a song. But when it comes to Bob Dylan, he adds so much variety in his live performances, and I think that's what's really been having me be so interested in all of his different decades of work. For instance, the song Isis on Desire, I talked about in the first video that I've made about Bob Dylan, and I was saying how it's really fun when he goes, well, I guess. I really like that little like vocal performance of that line on this song. But I think it's way better on the version that shows up on the bootleg. The live version of Isis has so much more energy. The song, he takes out a verse and they play it way faster. And it feels like you're like actually out adventuring in this song along with the singer. And it has this really cool effect of making me enjoy the original version more for different reasons. Now when I hear the original version and it's slower and there's an extra verse, I feel more like I'm kind of sitting in a room and the person who has been on this adventure is telling me all about it. And I'm getting to hear it in a musical way. It's being communicated to me through song, but I'm kind of sitting in a room listening to someone tell me about it, which is a cool way to hear the song. That's how I feel like I hear it on the album now. But when I'm hearing the live version from the Rolling Thunder Revue performances, I feel like I'm there on the adventure itself. And the difference that that makes is so cool because now I feel like I have two distinct versions of this song that I want to listen to at different times. And that's never how I feel about a live performance. Also on this tour, he'll change multiple lyrics of songs. He'll play them wildly differently, which leads me to another thing that I really enjoy about Bob Dylan and is kind of his entire MO, which is subverting expectations. It feels like there's never a moment where you're listening to a Bob Dylan album and you are on the same page as him. It feels like he's like somehow always a step ahead, which is really like slightly infuriating, but really fun to listen to. Another example from this Rolling Thunder Revue live set is the song It Ain't Me, Babe. The live performance of this is obviously wildly different from the one that we see with Joan Baez in the movie. This is now 10 years later at this point, and the song is performed with like a 70s rock band behind it. It's a lot faster of a tempo, which already is subverting your expectation. So that's cool on its own. But then in the song itself, there's a performance on this box set. See, I sound like I'm losing my mind. I sound like I'm losing my mind. There's a performance on the box set where he's saying step, like the first line starts with the word step. And you assume that he's just gonna say step, but then he starts holding out the S, and so you're assuming he's gonna step lightly, and then he holds out the S just like a beat longer than you start expecting it to. So I feel like there's two subversions of expectations. It's like the first one is the song sounds completely different already. And then as soon as you adjust to that, you're already like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And then you hear something like that, like how a line is going to be delivered, and your brain is thinking, oh, here's where the T is going to come in this word. And then it doesn't. It comes in just a beat later. And so again, even though you've adjusted once to what this new version of the song sounds like, you're still on your toes. Like you don't know what to expect, even though you think you know what to expect. I recognize that I sound like I'm out of my mind. Okay, we're gonna end this video with me predicting where I'll be in a couple of weeks. Right now, I'm working on New Morning, listening to more of New Morning, Modern Times, and Love and Theft. These albums, I like some of the things from, but they haven't fully clicked with me yet. And I know that these are some people's like favorite later Dylan albums. And so I'm trying to find the thing in them that will click for me. I'm sure it's gonna happen like 5 minutes after I end recording, but that's where I'm at. Also, I'd like to specify that I got this box set, but it is missing a CD. And because it's missing a CD, it was a lot cheaper at the place that I got it for. I got it secondhand, it's missing a CD. I would not have purchased this without it being as cheap as it was. So I just want to put that out there. I'm losing my mind, but not that much. But if anyone has CDs 4 and 5 from the Rolling Thunder Review 1975 live recordings box set, and they want to get rid of it for whatever reason, I know someone that you can call. Also, I'm sure this is something that every new Bob Dylan fan does, and I'm just gonna walk right into it anyways because I think it's funny. I think one of my favorite ever Bob Dylan musical things is on $1 Million Bash, where he just goes, ooh, baby, ooh-wee. That might be the best thing he's ever written, honestly. Thanks for watching this video. I have no clue what this series is. I don't know why I made a second video. I just feel like I'm so deep into the Bob Dylan lore right now that I wanted to give you a second snapshot into the madness that is falling into another obsession with an artist. If you enjoyed watching, I'm sure I'll make another one of these at some point. I had a lot of fun ranking Paul McCartney albums the other day, and I think I'm gonna do that again with the Beatles, maybe Autechre, honestly. I'd love to do it with Bob Dylan, but I think I need to learn more of his studio albums first. If you like hearing me talk about music, I'm gonna keep doing that here. So subscribe and like and leave an angry comment if you hated it. Thanks for watching. Bye.